All right, welcome back to the channel. So, man, you gotta love a case of chickens coming home to roost. And this is the case with Keith Thurman and Errol Spence Jr. Keith Thurman's chickens are coming home to roost. Errol Spence Jr., he said something about Errol Spence Jr. having to fight him or get out of the division. And, and Errol Spence Jr. just straight laughed at him, man. Dude, that is chickens coming home to roost. However, on this, I might be siding a little bit with Keith Thurman. Let's talk about it in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. So, shout out to everybody that subscribed. Hey, if you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon. If you are subscribed, to make sure that you get all of the notifications for the channel. Share, please share the videos, like the videos, and thank you to everybody that supports on the Patreon as a channel member and in the live streams Monday through Friday and OG Boxing Talk on Sunday. This is a really fun conversation because it is one that we have watched play out over the last 3 years, and that is the Errol Spence Jr. Keith Thurman fight that should have happened, never did happen, hopefully can happen, but probably will not happen because Keith Thurman blew it. But let's go through this. Keith Thurman, over the weekend, there was an article that I saw come out of boxingscene.com where Keith Thurman, I did a video about it yesterday. You can check it out. Go back and check out the video yesterday where Keith Thurman was talking about making his comeback in the welterweight division. Now, Keith Thurman lost to Manny Pacquiao. So Manny Pacquiao took his WBA belt that he had. He had to give up his WBC belt because Keith Thurman had to give up his WBC belt because he was injured for so long. Right, so now he does not have a belt. Errol Spence Jr. is the IBF champion and the WBC champion and is pretty generally considered the #1 welterweight on the planet, right? So Keith Thurman doesn't have a belt, wants to fight Errol Spence Jr. Makes sense, right? Well, big hang up here that it was because the shoe used to be on the other foot. As I said before, Keith Thurman was the guy that was the unified champion at 147 pounds, and Errol Spence Jr. was the guy without the belt. And so Keith Thurman kept saying, yeah, young man, when you get ready, yeah, when you get up there, when you get your size up, when you get your weight up, all that type of conversation was going on from Keith Thurman, and Errol Spence Jr. didn't appreciate it at all. Wasn't able to get a shot at the title from the WBA or the WBC. So he goes over there to the IBF, beats probably the best welterweight at the time, first or second best welterweight, but somebody that's on par with Keith Thurman in Kell Brook. Then he beats Sean Porter, and now he's the man, and Keith Thurman wants to fight, right? And says, hey, if you don't fight me, you're gonna have to fight me, or you're gonna have to get out of the division, right? Because I'm not going anywhere from the 147-pound division, and I'm going to chase you down. That good old stuff. Now, Errol Spence Jr. responds on Twitter with 3 smiley faces and says, my man, my man, you are funny. Get up out of here. It ain't happening. At least that's the way that I interpret it, right? Now, it would be reasonable for Errol Spence Jr. to take that stance. I mean, it's very tempting. And it's tempting to do that, right? Somebody who played Hollywood on you, acted as if, he didn't know who you were and you hadn't done enough. And right, he was just he was the man. He was fighting Danny Garcia. He's fighting Sean Porter and, looking for the Manny Pacquiao fight, and sees you as just somebody that, a very tough up and coming fighter that he don't want any parts of because he's got bigger and better things to do. So now that Errol Spence Jr. has bigger and better things to do, it's very tempting and very easy to look at Keith Thurman like, look, man, hey, karma is a bitch, ain't it? Karma is a bitch. So Errol Spence Jr. is it's very reasonable for him to sit back and say, hey, man, you're just going to have to swim in this, dude. I got other things to do, right? But here's my thing. I think Keith Thurman deserves a shot at Errol Spence Jr. I do. And primarily because Keith Thurman I believe Keith Thurman, even though he lost his last fight to Manny Pacquiao, I still think that he has done enough in his career, and considering the circumstances around the Manny Pacquiao fight in the amount of time that he took off, where he was probably a good bit depleted. He definitely wasn't at the same level of fighter that he was when he beat like a Robert the Ghost Guerrero, or beat Danny Garcia, or beat Sean Porter, right? But he's not too old, and he still has all of those victories on his record, right? And if you look at the people that Errol Spence Jr. is more than likely going to fight, Keith Thurman has a better record than both of those guys, right? Or any of those guys. He still has a better record than your Danny Zugas. He's still got a better record than Sean Porter. He beat Sean Porter. He still got a better record than Danny Garcia. He beat Danny Garcia, right? Now he lost to Manny Pacquiao, but still, dude, even if you look at that fight, dude, that was a very competitive fight, and that's Keith Thurman coming off of basically a two-year layoff with one tune-up, right? So I think that he will be better after he has about another two fights, if he is ever really able to get his injuries all the way together. Then I think, shoot, man, like I said, he deserves the fight. He might be able to beat Manny Pacquiao if he was all the way where he was, if he was where he was in 2016, right? So, I mean, I think Keith Thurman has done enough to deserve that. And from a practical standpoint, now that is from the standpoint of his resume and what he's done in boxing, right? Like from the monetary standpoint, dude, a fight with Keith Thurman is just as valuable as a fight with Sean Porter. I mean, Sean Porter had lost to Keith Thurman before he fought the Errol Spence Jr. fight, and that fight did well on pay-per-view. I can't see why I would suspect that the Keith Thurman fight should do just as well, provided he gets a chance to get a couple wins under his belts, and he's not going into that fight coming off of a loss, right? But I mean, all in all, for me, it makes sense to me that fight should be made, and I think Keith Thurman deserves it. That said, Keith Thurman is not really in the position to be bossing people around, right? I mean, he really is a guy with this thing with Errol Spence Jr. He really is a man in a glass house that's throwing stones, right? Now, the glass house in this particular scenario is the fact that he did the exact same thing to Errol Spence Jr. that Errol Spence Jr. is doing to him now, right? So, him talking about it in that manner, that does deserve the laughing emojis and the laughing with the tear emojis and says, my man, he does deserve that. He does deserve that reaction without a doubt. But, all in all, though, what's good for the sport of what I believe is best for the sport of boxing is for the best fighters to fight the best fighters. And I think Keith Thurman is clearly one of the best 4 or 5 fighters in the welterweight division. And also, as far as a matter of what fights Errol Spence Jr. is actually going to be able to get, I said this before, I'm not 100% convinced that Manny Pacquiao is ever going to fight Errol Spence Jr. I think this length of this layoff might very well push Manny Pacquiao into retirement. If this coronavirus and all this stuff doesn't get back somewhere close to normal by, say, March of next year, then you may very well be looking at the retirement of Manny Pacquiao, because that would mean that an Errol Spence Jr. fight, he'd have the Mikey Garcia fight, and then the Errol Spence Jr. fight might not be until 2022. Dude, in 2022, you're looking at a 43-year-old Manny Pacquiao against a 32-year-old Errol Spence Jr. Dude, he's going to get mopped, and he's probably not going to take that fight. So having a Keith Thurman there at 147, I think that's a legit fight. But Keith Thurman would probably have to get his hands on Manny Pacquiao's WBA belt in order for that to happen. And so maybe the smart route for Keith Thurman is to try to become a mandatory for get himself in a situation of being a mandatory for the WBA. because even though Manny Pacquiao's probably not going to give him the rematch, then maybe he can fight. If Manny Pacquiao were to vacate, then maybe he would be able to fight, Keith Thurman versus, Yordenis Ugas in a title eliminator, or, not a title eliminator, but for the vacant 147-pound WBA belts. But that's how I see it playing off. I think that Keith Thurman put himself in a hole for sure, man, but I respect that he is trying to get himself out of it. Look, you let me know what you think in the comment section. Do not forget to subscribe, hit the bell icon if you're not subscribed already. Hit the like button, hit the share, and leave a comment. Let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.